Now most of you probably realize I was using sign language there, but you don't know what I was saying. What I said was, how would you communicate with an audience of deaf people? And that brings us to what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about two types of hearing loss, form of communication used for people with profound hearing loss, and two types of cures for people with hearing loss. So to understand how people with hearing loss communicate and the possible cures, we have to talk a little bit about the types of hearing loss itself. Now, most of you have seen all the Think Well videos up to now, so you have a basic idea how hearing works. But what would cause it not to work? Today we're going to talk about two types of hearing loss that is on cochlearamericas.com's website. And that's going to be conductive hearing loss and sensory neural hearing loss. Now, conductive hearing loss occurs when the outer or middle ear areas of the ear are not functioning correctly. And this could be caused by birth defects or illness like an ear infection or even head injuries. And this will range from mild to severe hearing loss, meaning you can still hear, but it's not loud or clear enough to actually make out what's going on. Sensory neural hearing loss occurs when the inner ear is not functioning correctly. And this is caused by illnesses like jaundice, head injuries, genetics, or even birth defects. And this will range from mild to profound hearing loss. Profound meaning you cannot hear at all. There is nothing going on. And that is actually what my wife suffers from and how I got on the topic for today's speech. So now that we understand a little bit about hearing loss itself, let's discuss a form of communication used in the United States. Now, most people use their hands to animate what they're talking about. I know I do it a lot. But people with profound hearing loss, most people with profound hearing loss use their hands to communicate entirely. In the United States, the main form of sign language that people use to communicate is called American Sign Language. And this is comprised of an alphabet from A to Z, and all being done on one hand. A number system from 0 to 999 also being done on one hand, and forming different words like how, would, with, communicate by using one or two hands. So now that we've discussed a little bit about the communication people with profound hearing loss use, let's discuss two possible cures for people who have hearing loss. The two types of cures that we're going to talk about today, it comes from cochlearamericas.com's website, from how the Baha system works and how the nucleus system works. Now, the Baha system composes of three parts. It's for people with middle and outer ear damage. And how it works is it has a sound processor that sits on the outside of the head, an abutment which connects the processor to the implant, and the implant which is actually implanted in the bone itself behind the ear. And how this works is that the processor picks up the vibrations, transmits it through the abutment to the implant, which vibrates the bone that it's implanted in, and the vibrations go down the bone into the inner ear, where the functioning cochlea receives those vibrations and sends it off onto the auditory nerve to the brain for sound processing. The nucleus system, also known as a cochlear implant, functions a lot differently, and this is for people who have inner ear damage. The way this works is it has an outer ear processor that sits on the ear and it receives the sound. It's connected to the inner ear processor, which is placed in the side of the head, and they're connected by a magnet. Now, the processor will transmit the sound waves into a digital signal, which is transmitted through the magnets. The digital signal is then transmitted into an electrical signal on the internal implant, which is sent down a series of electrodes that sit gently inside the cochlea to stimulate the cochlea, which pass on the electrical signals to the brain to perceive sound. So now that we have covered the two possible cures for hearing loss, let us recap what we have discussed today. We've discussed two forms of hearing loss, conductive and sensory neural. We have discussed a form of communication used by people with profound hearing loss. And we have also discussed two possible cures for people who have hearing loss. So now that you know this and realize that communicating could be a lot harder than it is for us, Imagine having to do the speech class with having all these medical problems put in your way. I'm pretty sure this class seems a lot easier.